Hello and welcome everyone to the Midnight Lounge. I am your host, Midnight Lunatic here, and I'm bringing you a very special episode today because I am not here alone. I got with me today the host, and I say that with plural, hosts of the Legit Brew Review Show on YouTube. They host an amazing beer review show. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen them before because I have actually talked about them before in the past. They're both with me here today. Welcome, Trevor and Matt.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Happy to
Howdy,
be here.
howdy.
Yeah, I'm excited. Today we got a fabulous show today. This is going to be a really fun time for me. I've been wanting to do something like this for a very long time, and I'm so glad that you guys are here to actually experience this with me and share your guys' thoughts and feelings on this because I have something special planned today. We are going to be doing a show about conspiracy theories. You guys know what conspiracy theories, right? You guys know what they are.
Conspiracy theories, I either really love them or I truly hate them.
I've never heard of conspiracy theories before. What is a conspiracy theory, Midnight Lunatic? Please let me know.
Yeah, if you need me to explain to you what a conspiracy theory is, it is actually a theory that people have actually thought about and are thinking that it might be true, but nothing is certain that it is true. So let's say, for example, the the 2012 theory, right? We'll go ahead and start off with that. I'm going to go ahead and explain to you while we're doing the show here. So the 2012 theory, right? That was the end of the world theory is what other people refer to it as, right? Now, what the theory is said to have been is that in 2012, they said that the Mayan calendar actually ended. That was going to be the end of the world. The theory is that the world actually did end in 2012, and right now as we are doing this show, we are actually inside of a simulation, that this is all a dream, kind of like a past experience, but not really a past experience, if that makes sense. We're living in a simulation to where everything is not truly reality.
I don't know if that's supposed to make me feel better or worse.
Yeah, I don't quite know how that would be a thing, because if we're indeed living in a simulation, that would mean we would have no free will to literally be signed up to be doing this podcast right now. So I would say that kind of debunks that theory in my eyes.
Yeah, there's a lot of speculation about it, and from what the 2012 theory actually brought was the Mandala Effect. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Mandala Effect before, where like a certain thing, is remembered a certain way than what it actually is in reality. So, like for example, the Monopoly Man. You guys remember the Monopoly Man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's said that the Monopoly Man in the past life, right, that most people remember, is the Monopoly Man actually has a monocle, but in today's society, in today's realm, he does not.
I wonder how much of that can be traced back to like marketing, or if there were like old pictures of old box sets with like the Monopoly guy having a monocle. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, no, there are plenty of interesting Mandela Effect conspiracies. Um, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just we remember things as being a certain way, and I mean, think about. I mean, someone pointed out to me one time. Um, you know, you use Google every day, but do you know the colors of the Google letters? And I don't. So I mean, who's to say that someone could come in and be like, oh, they were always this color or something? I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but I think we sort of remember things as like a culture, and sometimes they like the Darth Vader line where he says, he never says Luke, I am your father. He says no, and for some reason it's always been remembered as Luke, I am your father, but he never said that. So
Right, yeah, and I remember that too. And I mean, I there's certain things that like I have a hard time feeling. I feel like certain things are made into being classified as a Mandela effect, and maybe they weren't. You know, maybe the marketing did change. Because I mean, I've heard everything from like the Starbucks mermaid to you know, all the different like things that we're used to seeing in marketing that very well could change with time and evolution of companies and you know changing in graphic design and all those kind of things. So I feel like while some things could be a thing, I feel like maybe it's harder to find the older stuff once they replace the marketing because they kind of want to flush that old brand, that old look out completely, and you can't find it as easily anymore because they've rebranded entirely and they've flushed, you know, the old marketing, the old images, the old whatever. Because I mean, I remember the Monopoly guy having a monocle at some point or another. I mean, why would I have just, you know, I mean, obviously the Monopoly guy in Ace Ventura had one. So what? Everybody in the world is remembering the Monopoly guy as having one because the guy he called the Monopoly Man in Ace Ventura happened to also have one. Why did he have one then if the Monopoly guy didn't? You know what I'm saying? Like,
And part of it, I think, is that psychological phenomenon where like sometimes people are really easily influenced, and you can tell them that something is a certain way, and they say, "Oh yeah, okay," so they believe that think that they think that they remember something looking a certain way. Um, and sometimes it is just marketing. Sometimes it's we take things, ideas, and we run with them, and they aren't exactly true.
Well, I know that they even do it in songs. Like you all know the Queen song "We Are the Champions," right? Now there's a
sure.
Mandela effect where at the end it says, "We are the champions of the world," and that's not actually in the song. But I remember that being part of the song. I remember like listening to that part of the song, and now I'm not sure if it's true or
Wait,
not
they think
because
it's not part of it?
that it's not part of it now, but it used to be. I remember hearing that part in the song because I
I'm
remember
pretty
in the
sure.
yeah, in the Disney movie Chicken Little, I don't know if you guys seen that movie, he actually sings that song in the movie and says of the world like at the end of it. So I want to say it's in that song, but in today's realm, and I say that with quotes because again, we're living in this simulation of the 2012 theory, it doesn't exist in today's realm.
I remember that part of the song.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely do too because that's wasn't that before because that wasn't the last verse. That was like a lead in before the next verse, right? That was the chorus where it was of the world and then they had that little instrumental and then he would go into time after time, you know, whatever it was. So I'm pretty positive that's a thing too. So unless they went in and remastered it and then they're trying to, you know, they're trying to screw with the old noggin and tell us that we didn't when we did, you know, that's the side of it that makes me feel like with conspiracy, there's also manipulation or the idea or possibility of manipulation just to see if we can mass influence. That's another side of it that I wouldn't say is something. I mean, that's a theory in itself. That is conspiracy theory used to test mass manipulation. And see, that would be something that I would believe because at that point you're testing out something on some stuff that doesn't even matter to see if I apply it to something that it does matter, if I could manipulate a mass audience of people to believe a certain thing, whether it's truthful or not. We want them to believe what we want them to believe. So that's a theory, like again, like I said, in itself.
And some of those things can be easily debunked, though. Anyone with an old record, you know, can pop it on and be like, "See, there it is."
Right.
So again, it's you. Some of these things can be easily debunked, whereas some other things can. Like what was the? It's the theory itself is named after Mandela, who everyone thought had died, like a long time ago or something, but he didn't, and like he died. Well, what, like 10, 12 years ago, something like that, and everyone was like, "Wait, we thought he already died."
Right, because I remember them saying the rumor around that supposedly he died in like a prison camp or something, or he died in some type of camp like forever long ago.
Yeah, it's funny because like another Mandela Effect was J.C. Penney. The spelling of J.C. Penney, the store, they actually, were saying that instead of it ending in an EY, it was ending in just a Y. It was PENNY and not PENNEY. And I remember it being NY, but then I also remember it being NEY. And I did work there a couple years back, and I have my name tag, and I went and searched it up, and I got my name tag just to see, I wanted to be certain. And sure enough, on there was NEY and ended in NEY. But I remember it at one point of time ending in just the Y and not EY.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't, with that one in particular, I don't remember that one being like penny, like the currency. I do remember the NEY because it's a name. Like it's JC Penny is like, like a name. It's not saying like, like the currency that we associate with penny as well. I've also seen penny. I don't know if penny is like a last name, like it's somebody's initials and then a last name, but I've also seen the name penny as a last name spelt the same way as the company. So with that one, I don't feel as I don't know. That one I don't quite feel that I remember a different way. But to kind of like jump into another one that I don't know if you have on your list, but it's a common one obviously, is the whole idea behind the Shazam Sinbad genie movie that everybody supposedly is misremembering as Shaq's Kazam. Wasn't that the whole
That's
thing with
right. That's right.
Shazam and Kazam type
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's another one of those Mandela ones where people are remembering a movie from their childhood. Like there are people out there that swear that they've got it, that they rented it from Blockbuster, they've seen it. Some people out there remember the whole plot, and it's not the same as the one with Shaq.
And that's what's funny to me is because while I've never seen the movie, I remember there being a movie that I used to see at Blockbuster back in the heyday when Blockbuster was a thing. Most younger people in the audience wouldn't probably even have ever heard of that. Um, but if you haven't heard of it, it was an old video store or a video store when we were younger that was available for you to rent movies and games and stuff like that. And it was a whole experience in itself. But I remember seeing the box for it, but I had never seen the movie. And I want to say I had a friend growing up that also owned the movie. I don't communicate with that friend anymore, nor do I think they would even have it anymore anyway. But I swore it was the same thing because I remember seeing the box cover to the Shaq movie and it looking nothing like the one that I remember the Sinbad movie looking like. And then Sinbad supposedly has even come out and like said that he's never been in a movie like that and all this kind of stuff. I don't know, man. Like I just find it really hard to believe that that so many people remember something a certain way and then we're being told otherwise. So
But again, that might play into that whole mass manipulation theory.
right.
So it's funny to see how easily, if that was the case, how easily so many people could be persuaded that they remember something that didn't actually.
Right. You're over here telling us that what we remember is not right. Like, okay, like that's kind of crazy that so many of us remember that way. How did all of us remember that the wrong way? All of us? Like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them. The list kind of goes on with Mandela effects. Another common one that a lot of people are still to this day trying to figure out is the one with it's either Sex in the City or Sex and the City. Because I remember it being Sex in the City and not and the city.
Or how about those Berenstain Bears?
That is another
that,
one. Yes.
yeah,
That's the most popular one, I think.
I definitely remember it as the Berenstain Bears.
Me too.
I remember it being said that way. I've never heard it Berenstein, even though, like, obviously in the right dialect and the right culture, they might Stein versus Steen. But I
Let's say
remember it.
stain, like a stain on your shirt.
Oh, that's even more off than what I remember for sure. And then the other one was the Which one was it that you had said?
The Sex and the City one.
Yeah. The Sex in the City. I remember it was Sex in the City. Is that what they're saying it was? Sex in the
They were
City
saying
versus
Sex
Sex
in the
and the
City,
City?
and now it's set to be Sex and the City.
But see, I know
Huh.
I always remember that big ampersand. So that's when I can.
Right. Yeah.
I remember the big ampersand.
Yeah. I remember. I mean, because, okay, so if there would be no reason to have the and symbol featured if the word was in versus and. So where did the and
Yeah,
symbol come from?
that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people are trying to figure out is like how do so much, like you were saying, how do so much people remember one thing being a certain way and now it's a different way. I mean, it's a lot of like different Mandela effects. There's a lot of different companies that have like changed a letter in the word, like Oscar Mayer versus Oscar Mayer or whatever. It's spelled with the M-A instead of an M-E. You know, there's a lot of companies that are changing just a slight thing and it's throwing a lot of people off. Or like a little design logo, you know, have one change and it throws off the entire thing of what people used to remember.
I've even seen one about the Ford logo. Have you heard about that one?
I haven't.
Well, there's the big F in the Ford logo. There's a squiggly in the middle of the F, and a lot of people are like, "That's never been there before," But I think it has, and like, cause I've done a little bit of research on that one, cause that one it was a newer one that I'd heard of, and I did some research on that one recently, and from what I can tell, it's always been there. But then again, you have so many people out there that are saying no, it hasn't been there. Like I have old um, plates and old Ford, like a beat up Ford, my grandpa's old truck in the backyard that's all rusted. I go out there and look at it. That squiggly line ain't there. But again, some of it is sort of what do you call that? Anecdotal. It's not something you can really prove sometimes, and that makes it ever the more frustrating. I
Right.
think.
And the thing that confuses me about all of that is, sure, there is a possibility that we just don't pay as close attention to things as we seem to think we do. There is always that. There is always, especially when it comes to graphical things or, logos or, whatever it is, we see them all the time, but that doesn't mean that we pay attention to every little minute detail, every little, whether or not the mermaid's wearing seashells, whether she doesn't have any seashells on, all this kind of silly stuff. Like that's stuff that we take for granted. We associate a mermaid, like referring to the Starbucks mermaid thing. I know they did rebrand several times and they did change the logo. So the debate behind, whether this changed or whether it didn't or all this kind of stuff. I mean, we also, like I said, we see things from a whole standpoint. We don't always see the little smaller details in things and we kind of overlook certain things. But then there's other things that I feel like our intelligence is being doubted because it's like, how do so many of us remember exact things? Now, obviously, if you can't prove, you can't transpire the thing that you thought you had, like I haven't been able to find the Sinbad cover that I know that I've seen. I've Googled it. I've, tried to see if I could physically find it anywhere. I can't
Right.
find it anymore,
Yeah, it said that it just doesn't exist when a lot of people remember it. Same with like, the Pikachu's tail. A lot of people, and I grew up with Pokemon too. Like I watched Pokemon as a kid. I used to collect the cards. And I remember that Pikachu's tail had this, kind of like a black, shadowing on his tail. It wasn't just the pure yellow tail that people are seeing now. It had, the lightning bolt kind of pattern on his tail, kind of like how he has it on his ears. It has that black shadowing on the ears. It was like that on the tail, and I remember that, but of
Yeah,
course
I
it
think
doesn't show.
that's I think that's one that was deliberately changed though. People go back and some people say that it never was there, and but that's one that I think that could be easily debunked too. But let me ask you guys something. Do any of you guys know if there's an ampersand in the McDonald's logo, like McDonald's, like possessive?
Okay.
So
Um,
if someone were to say there never was an ampersand or something, who would really know? Like unless you like I don't know. I think there's an ampersand. There's a little I think there's one in McDonald's.
Are
I don't know for
are
sure.
you referring to the apostrophe?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I
When you
mean.
were saying
Apostrophe.
ampersand, I was confused and I was like, is there an ampersand in the McDonald's? And
No,
then
no.
you kept saying it like
I meant
possessive, and
apostrophe.
I said, oh, okay. I think he's talking
Yeah.
about
yeah, I
apostrophe.
know what he
Okay.
meant.
I have
Yeah,
a
I
head
was just
cold, guys.
making
I'm
sure
sorry.
because I'm sitting here thinking like, damn, is there an ampersand in the McDonald's symbol? Like,
But
am I that?
if someone were to
Yeah.
say that there never was an apostrophe in McDonald's, I'd be like, what? What?
I
Like
mean, there's
I've said
people that
that a
have,
million times.
yeah, I mean, there's people that have like old McDonald's bags or wrappers from like meals that they had 50 years ago, and I don't remember there ever being an apostrophe in it.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there is one. I don't know if there isn't one. But it's a little detail that I just don't know. But if someone were to say there never was one, then that's just one of those instances where people would get up in arms about it on Facebook. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. So if it was a place that was owned by somebody with the last name McDonald's and you were wanting to say like this is McDonald's versus is the last name McDonald's, like it's not McDonald plural, it's like McDonald's is the last name, then yeah, there wouldn't really be an apostrophe. I mean, I guess you could put the one at the end of the S like you do when it already has the S included, but still that's that's two different ways that it could be. So is it saying like this is McDonald's restaurant, or is it just McDonald's is the family last name with the S, and then it's just that's what it's called. So
Well,
yeah,
there is
interesting.
an apostrophe. There is an apostrophe. That's your answer. But if be on the lookout for that one in the future. If someone tries saying there's no apostrophe in McDonald's, be like, no, there is.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to keep a lookout for that because yeah, I don't remember there being an apostrophe, but I mean it's something that I just never really noticed. I haven't really paid attention to.
Or like if someone were to change the colors for the Google letters just out of the blue, if Google were to just change them, and they're like, "Hey, did you guys know that these colors were always this way?" Be like, "No, they weren't."
Yeah, and again, it shows you how much little attention that we give things that we see. Because I mean, most of us see the Google, the Google home screen. Those of us that use Google and don't have the conspiracy that Google's trying to steal our identity and DNA and all the other things that also go along with that kind of stuff. But Google, even though we see it on a daily basis, we're comfortable with the idea of like, oh, that's just the Google colors. But we don't really know. Do you know which O is red, which one is blue? You don't know that shit because you see it on a daily basis. You take it for granted because you're just like, oh, yeah, that's the Google colors. I know that.
Right.
It's just something that we don't pay attention to those minute details. We see it as a whole, like just that it's colored and that it's the letters and each letter has its own color. But do we really know, like, do we really pay that close attention? I'll tell you firsthand from my experience, I don't. I know I see those colors every day, several times a day, but I couldn't tell you if given a quiz on what letter is what color and nah.
I know for Google they actually do change the graphic design of the Google wording itself during
Yeah.
specific holidays or things like that. I know that they change, like St. Patty's Day is going to be, green. It has like 4-leaf clovers around. Sometimes they'll have like a little leprechaun. Christmas time they'll have like little snow designs. I don't know how they do it, but they do it, and I think it's pretty cool.
It's like Google magic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. So Mandela's, the list kind of goes on and on there, and there's a whole lot of them. We're only on the surface of Mandela effects, but steering off in a different directions. I kind of want to take things a little bit more serious now. We're gonna get into the more serious conversations. I want to talk a little bit about the moon landing. Now, a lot of speculations have said that the moon landing never happened. It wasn't true. It was all staged. It was faked. What are your guys' thoughts about that? Because I firmly believe that it was fake, only because, at the time, that NASA actually did this, right? It was what, in the 50s, somewhere around there in that area. and
The moon landing was 69.
okay, but the technology that they had back then compared to now, why haven't we been to the moon ever since?
That's a good one. So I feel like my opinion, I feel like the moon landing did happen. But I could see how some people think that it was fake. The whole reason for the moon landing, right, was to beat the Russians to the moon, because
Right.
this was the tail end of the 50s, and the fear of communism was was so rampant in the U.S., and the ultimate fear was the bomb. And if there was any chance that the Russians would have a leg up over the good old USA, that just wouldn't be acceptable. So and the Russians put the first satellite in space, and that really started to scare the U.S. government. So we had to get a leg up on them and send the first. I think even the Russians put the first man into space. Um, but so we made it to the moon. Now we could have just um, it could have been filmed in a studio, like some people say. I don't really believe that, but the idea still would have come across that we beat them to the moon, and that would have been something. The reason I think we haven't been back is because there's nothing to do there, or maybe there's just no motivation anymore at this point. Because the Soviet Union isn't the Soviet Union anymore, and that was the big driving force to get us there. And because that that conflict doesn't really exist anymore, there's no further reason to go there. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I would say that too, but I can't say that I completely disagree with what you're saying, but just to play the counter argument just for fun, um, what I will say is there's an 8 year time difference between certain things. That the moon landing is 1969. 8 years later comes out Star Wars. Okay, so the 8 year time frame difference to possibly replicate something, that's not a whole lot of time.
Right.
I don't know that there was anything comparable to Star Wars that would have been available in 1969 to possibly replicate the moon. Not, like how Star Wars would be able to replicate, through practical effects and things like that. Um, Stuff in 1977. I don't know if they were capable of producing that type of results in 1969 to be able to simulate a moon landing had it not really happened. But it is kind of close. 1969 and 1977, like I said, they're a little bit close. 8 years difference. I don't know if they were capable of doing those type of things, but if they were, or they were working on being able to be capable of those things come 8 years later, I would say that is going to be the forefront of how they were able to make it so believable. If it doesn't, it didn't really happen, it would be through those kind of means that they were able to have people believe that it did, and it didn't.
So okay, so the reason why I say that it wasn't real is not the fact that it didn't happen. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. It's possible that it happened. The only reason I'm saying that it possibly did not happen was because at the time, technology wasn't as advanced as it was now, right? I keep going back to, technology hasn't been advanced, in that way. But whenever they did it, it was on television. How do they get the feed like that very next day to show it on television and then have it everywhere in the presses? Wouldn't it have taken a little bit longer than an entire day to get a whole feed of this live stream from the moon to Earth through our satellites at that time? Wouldn't it have taken it longer?
That's a good point. I don't know all the little details of it. I think that if it was done, I don't know, like a couple days before, and they were able to send it back and replay it. And I've seen interviews of science fiction authors reacting to the news, and the footage itself, the astronauts beep bopping across the moon. Um, I don't know if it was like a, obviously I don't think it could have been a live stream deal. You can't really live stream from the moon. I don't know how they did it, but I certainly think that a great amount of effort um went into the what do you call it, the advertisement of the moon landing.
Okay.
It was a big event. It was the biggest. It's one of the most important events of our species, I think.
Right.
And one thing, while we were talking, I just happened to look up something on the History Channel involving that. I wanted to see what they published in the terms of like time frames, right? So they're saying at 9:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on July 16th, with the world watching, Apollo 11 took off from the Kennedy Space Center with the astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins aboard. Um, After traveling 240,000 miles in 76 hours, Apollo 11 entered the lunar orbit on the 19th of July. The next day at 1:46 p.m., the lunar model Eagle, manned by Armstrong and Aldrin, separated from the command module where Collins remained. 2 hours. I'm trying to see how the correlation of time essentially works. They're saying that at 4:17 is when the craft touched down on the southwestern edge of the Sea of Tranquility. Um,
Interesting.
and I saw the part where, oh my God, hold on a second. Yeah, here we go. At 10:39 p.m., 5 hours ahead of the original schedule. That's something that, while I believe it can happen, that's quite a bit of time ahead of schedule. Um, and at 10:56, it says he stepped off the ladder and he planted his foot on a powdery surface, or the moon's powdery surface. He spoke his famous line, which he later contended was slightly garbled due to his microphone, which was meant to be, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. That's where it does that thing.
Right.
Aldrin joined him on the moon's surface 19 minutes later, and together they took photographs and planted the U.S. flag and ran a few simple scientific tests, because that's what you do once you get to the moon. You run the most simple scientific tests as you can. And then you talk to old Richard Nixon, which I'll leave my opinions on him out. By 1:11 a.m. on July 21st, both astronauts were back in the lunar module and the hatch was closed. The two men slept that night on the surface of the moon, and at 1:54 p.m., the Eagle began its ascent back to the command module. Among the items left on the surface of the moon was a plaque that read, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot on the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all of mankind." So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an expert when it comes to all things time, but the 5 hours ahead of original schedule thing interjects a little bit of shock to me, because I feel like that's quite a bit of time
Yeah,
to
that
be
is a
able to
lot.
exceed based on a potential projection. But we are talking, in the mid to late 60s. So maybe just the tools at the time, that's
A
what they had.
project
And,
like this had never been conducted, so that's another point.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting with just that in general. I mean, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. A lot of people, for the longest time, I believed that it did happen, but then, like that whole time crunch thing, it just, I don't know, it kind of just threw me off. It threw me for a loop, and I just like kind of just doubted it ever since. And I still don't know what to believe, because again, we still have not like gone out there to explore. Now we're out in Mars, right? We're exploring Mars, and we're doing things there. And I know this kind of like goes off of what we're kind of talking about, but not really. Elon Musk is actually wanting to do something on the moon involving Tesla and the Starlink. That they're wanting to build like this facility out there, so that way it provides Starlink access to not only the moon but to Earth as well.
I'd heard something about that. The name Starlink.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like why haven't we been back? Because there's a lot more to the moon that we haven't explored. I mean, we're only in that one spot. What's on the other side of the moon? You know, what is on the dark side of the moon? You know, and another theory that people, you know, like to say about the moon, on why we haven't been back, is did they see something that scared them for them not to go back? I forgot what movie it's called. I think it's Apollo 18, I believe. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but like they have like those strange little alien things that like crawl inside their helmets and stuff.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility of that?
I mean, anything's possible, right? Maybe they did see some little green man up there, but I think really it's a matter of funding and what's considered a priority or not. I mean, if you look at every time something is cut, funding is cut for something, the first thing is usually NASA's funding.
Okay.
Yeah, and to piggyback on what Trevor said, the Apollo program, I was reading here also in that same article, the Apollo program was a costly and labor-intensive endeavor. It says involving an estimated 400,000 engineers, technicians, and scientists, costing 24 billion. That's close to 100 billion in today's dollars. The expense was justified by Kennedy's 1961 mandate to beat the Soviets to the moon, as Trevor also said earlier. And after the feat was accomplished, ongoing missions lost their visibility. So that's essentially the catalyst behind going to the moon, was simply to beat the Russians, as he said. And then once we did that, we didn't give a shit about ever going back, because there wasn't really anything to go there for. We were the first. We did the thing before the other guys, and then at that point, we did the thing. The plaque's there. Bye-bye. You know.
And I guess that's what they call it, the race to the moon.
And then you have these terrible events like the Challenger blowing up that really just blows morale for everyone. And when billions of dollars is being spent on this to fund these programs, and then sometimes these terrible accidents, really takes some of the motivation out of it and the government's motivation, because it's bad press. The shuttle blew up. These astronauts died. One of them was a teacher. You know, it's a bad PR. Really, it's bad PR, and you know, you know how politics in America works. You know, they drop it at the side of the sign of first trouble. It's they cut the funding, and I think that's a big part of it as well.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, can you think about it though? 24 billion back in the, mid to late 60s, right? They're saying that's equated to 100 billion in today's standards. 24 billion is a lot of money. That's a lot of money for back then.
Right.
So to have spent that kind of money and to have developed that type of program, and then also have had those, those unfortunate things. And I guess we can kind of get off of this and jump on to something else, because we're spending a lot of time on this moon stuff. Because I'm like, somebody's gonna grill us on us not saying something correct. We're saying too much about the moon stuff. But that's a lot of money for back then. So you're seeing how, that's easily 3/4 more now than it was then. So
yeah, I mean, it makes more sense that you put it that way, with, how expensive it is to actually put on such a project like that. So I mean, I guess I see why we haven't been back to the moon ever since. And again, what you said, Trevor, there's really nothing out there for us to do. I know people have been wanting to go there to like actually kind of see if life can actually exist out there. They want to kind of do this experiment by sending people to the moon, and they'll have like these like little space bunker things where people can actually live inside and kind of test out that theory if man can survive on the moon. Which I don't know how to feel about that, but it's very interesting.
Well, I've been hearing a story about like a one-way shuttle to Mars for years now. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but supposedly we're supposed to be sending a group of people on a one-way trip to Mars, where they would establish a settlement there. Where they live in these biodomes essentially, and they'd be fully responsible for their own care. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but something like that could happen, and it could happen on the moon. Maybe we'll see it one day, but right now, I don't see I don't see the funding. I don't see the motivation. Um, it's a very costly endeavor.
Okay. So okay, a quick question before we get on to the next topic that I want to talk about this evening. Um, it's going to be a yes or no question. You can actually explain your answer if you want to. Existence of aliens. Do you guys believe it? Yes or no?
Oh hell yes.
Yeah, I definitely don't doubt the intelligence. I don't feel like we're the tippy top. We're where everything stops. I'm not gonna be of that mindset and be so simple minded as to think that the human race is where everything caps off, if you will.
Right.
Um, and in our entire universe, the whole universe, the broad universe, the parts of the universe that we don't even exist, you mean to tell me that we're where it stops, right? Like,
You're looking at
no,
peak
no.
performance, guys. Peak evolutionary performance right here.
Right,
This
right.
furry
Yeah.
man ape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're literally made of we're walking skin suits and we're where it stops, you know?
Yeah, a
Right.
lot of people, they still don't believe that aliens exist. Now, for people that say that aliens don't exist, what I picture as an alien is not this green little cartoon looking character, right, with a big, head. It's something more than that. A lot of people speculate that aliens are kind of like these reptilian people. I don't even specifically believe in that per se. Who's to say that there is, reptilian aliens? But what I think of aliens as a whole is just something that is more artificial, more intelligent, something that us as human race could never really get.
Well, and you have to think if there are aliens or there's a life that exists out there that is anything similar to us intelligence wise, you know, have a culture of their own, and I mean, shoot, the ability to even travel the stars shows a much more advanced technological um, um, achievement.
Right.
They unless they have unless they inhabit a world that is very similar to ours, um, they won't look anything like us. You know, they're not going to be human. They might not even look
Right.
humanoid. They might not even look reptilian because reptiles are a product of Earth.
Right.
So who's to say what they would look like? They might be blobs. They might look like jellyfish. But then again, jellyfish are. So I don't know. But what are those properties of life that might, I don't know, maybe look the same depending on regardless of what planet you're in. You know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
something about just life that maybe it would look the same on another planet, but I don't know. I think that some of that has to do with the biological evolution of creatures on Earth. Plant life, organic life, animals, fish. No, but I definitely believe that there's something else out there. I don't think that we'll find it in our solar system or our galaxy. Maybe not even our galaxy, but they they might find us before we find them. Maybe they already have.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guarantee that. I mean, we're not alone in our existence. We're definitely not alone. I know that there's something out there more than just us humans. And I would definitely love to be in that decade, that lifetime of us actually being in that realm of meeting something that is not from our planet.
I want to be there when the Vulcans discover Earth.
I to kind of interject a little bit. I feel like other life outside of us, I feel like they already see how we react and handle things and how poorly that is. They see how we treat our own people. The fact that we just leave our own to starve, we don't try to take care and house our own. They see how aggressive and how hostile we get over some of the smallest, minute, stupid things. I feel like other life I feel like Earth to other planets or other other species or other life, I feel like we're a resource center to them. And the whole reason they haven't done anything to try to harm us or do anything like depicted in literally every movie involving aliens or extraterrestrial life, where they're always out for like world domination or like to harvest us and all this kind of stuff. I feel like they may have more involvement in our existence than we will ever know. We give the accreditation from a religious factor to gods and things like that, but we may have been created by another life somewhere, put here, and we're a resource center because we live in a very versatile planet. We have a planet that's able to sustain multiple, different types of life. We have multiple resources that grow here. We have a sun that we can harness energy from, and they can harness energy from in a solar sense. There's tons of resources, and I also feel like that may contribute to some of why our planet hasn't died like it should have already, considering how greedy we are with stripping our own resources. I feel like they may have something to do with the behind the scenes aspect of it, because they rely so heavily on our resources for their type of thing. They can
Right.
refuel their ships off of our sun. And they've also had, footage come out years back that NASA released where there was some unidentified craft that could never be proven that was docked, connected to the sun for a period of time, and then disappeared. You can actually find it on the web still. Really fascinating and really crazy. So it's things like that I feel like they don't come and respond to us because they see how we act. They know we will act violently, and maybe not all of us, but as a whole, our government and our societal
Right.
structure, we act out of hostility so easily, because when we don't understand something, we want to kill it, we want to capture it, we want to lock it up, we want to experiment on it. That species is much smarter than us. They're not going to come here for us to do that. And anything that where that kind of stuff has happened in the past is always due to some kind of mishap, like their ship crashed or, some kind of something happened that was not planned. So I definitely don't rule out the idea. I haven't personally witnessed anything like that, but I'm to the effect that, they're staying quiet for good reason, because they know that we're not to the maturity level or the evolution yet to be able to properly process and communicate, communication with them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they would be threatened by us per se. I mean, they have technology that would, you know, put ours to shame, our most advanced technology to shame. But I do think that they'd see no point in interacting with us. We would just make a lot of noise and we'd be hostile, and they'd be like, "Yeah, there's no point."
Yeah, I mean, I know that that recently the existence of UFOs have actually been more commercialized now because NASA kind of released some classified documents and footage from different things, and I've been doing a lot of research on UFOs and things like that, and a lot of people are actually starting to notice more things in the sky floating that are not airplanes, they're not hot air balloons, they're not weather balloons, they're not drones. There's something more interesting going on in the skies, and a lot of people have actually been getting video footage of it. Now some of it looks a little bit fake to me. It kind of looks like they kind of photoshopped the video in some way where they like added some type of effect to it, which is highly possible in today's world of technology. But a lot of very convincing videos that I have seen, especially in documentaries, where these UFO objects have been taking shape in many different ways, from pyramids to the flying saucers to the rectangles, just different shapes and different sizes. And so I definitely think that aliens, or some type of outer being has been kind of monitoring our planet Earth for a while, but are now getting more, I wouldn't say involved in it, but more observant because of what is going on in today's, society. And, they're kind of wanting to keep tabs on us to see what our next step for our human race is going to be, and studying that for maybe their own, type of society.
Or maybe we're the ones that are getting more observant, and we can record these things now, these sites more easily with our cell phones. And we've
Right.
grown up in this UFO culture. It's I mean that the whole idea of UFOs is so much more popular now than it was in the 50s and the 60s. And everyone is looking when we see something in the sky, like, is that an airplane or is that a UFO? We're always on the lookout for a UFO to see if we're going to be lucky enough to experience something like that. But then again, is it a secret military craft? Is it something that's being conducted by the Air Force? Is it, we never know these things. So but it is exciting, to experience something like that where you're like, oh, is that a UFO? Oh, look at it. There.
Right.
It's funny too, Trevor. I don't know if okay, I think you had a hiccup there. I don't know if you want to divulge your personal experience that you've kind of had with that, because I mean, you choose how descriptive to be, but I feel
I
like
would definitely love to hear more.
the story itself is very fascinating, and it's not only something that he witnessed. His sisters. I don't know if your
I don't
brother was
like
there or not.
I don't like getting into it because I don't want to sound like a nut.
But you're not like
Uh,
it's really not like
yeah.
it's really cool. Like I said, choose how how in depth to get, but I really feel like that should be documented. I was gonna ask Lexi to do it if she happened to
Well, I
come
don't.
on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason I don't talk about it is because the perception that comes along with people that are like, oh, I've seen a UFO, I've seen aliens, and okay, Grandpa, go back to your rocking chair, get Grandpa his juice. But no, I have experienced something that was paranormal and definitely something I couldn't explain, other than just to say that it was a UFO. And it wasn't just me; my family was there, and we were all hanging out one evening in the kitchen, and we saw some strange lights coming from the backyard. Now, at the time, we lived in an old farmhouse with a cow field behind, uh, in the backyard. So, of course, very stereotypical, like, oh, they're stealing the cows. But we saw some strange lights, and they were flashing orange off in the field. And it was at this point it was dusk; you couldn't see much other than the lights that were flashing. It's caught our attention. Um, and slowly but surely, these lights started to take from the ground, and that's what really set us off, because we didn't know what it was at first. But then these lights started to hover, raise into the air, and we saw multiple lights, and they were orange, and they just all started to rise up. And so we all ran outside into the yard, and we were just watching them as they took off. Like, it was the most insane thing I've ever witnessed. And they rise into the air, and then they just zoom off. And not 10 seconds later, these airplanes, these Air Force jets started flying above our house.
Now, did you hear any noises at all, or was it
Not
complete
that I can,
silent?
not that I can recall. I mean, we were all being way too loud anyway. We were shouting like, "God, do you see that?" Like, it was insane, and we were all caught up in the moment. I can't explain what it was. I don't know, but I can only tell you what we saw, how we reacted, and then the events that transpired just after all of that ended with the jets flying over our house. It was as if they were like, they knew,
Right.
or they caught them on radar, or they knew they were there, and they flew over our neighborhood to see if they could catch them. And
Right.
God, what would have happened if they did? Like, like, were they gonna, I don't want to think about that, but
What
Like
the?
a firefight happened above us. Like I don't.
And that's how a lot of like these UFO videos actually end, is with, you know, these military jets. They're flying towards these objects, and then the video just cuts out. And I'm like, I kind of want to see what happens after that. Like, why do you cut the video?
It was strange, and I can't explain it. No, to this day. But that's really what makes me a firm believer, um, in extraterrestrial life. That experience changed my life. You know, I don't know what it was. I don't know. I can't understand it, but I'm definitely not closed minded.
Definitely.
And that's interesting to the same effect though, because a lot of the things that have come out in various documentaries and various interviews of fighter pilots have recently come out a lot and have identified having these interactions with these craft that were making maneuvers that our technology cannot make. And we're hitting speeds. We're talking about these guys are at several Machs chasing this craft that they're not even touching. How are they at things like Mach 3 and Mach 4 in fighter jets? And I mean, they're defying sound, they're defying the speed of light, they're defying all these things, and this craft is just, leaps and bounds ahead of them. And these fighter jets want to believe that, like, what am I seeing? Like there's no way. And I've seen like some of the video footage that they've been able to disclose, and it's been unclassified, where you literally hear the radio, and they're like, "Are you seeing that? Like, are you seeing this guy? I can't even touch this guy." And they're like, "Just look at the maneuvers he's doing," and you just hear the pure just like hysteria in these fighter pilots' voice, because they're witnessing something that they've never seen before.
Right.
That should be impossible. That should be impossible.
That should be impossible. Exactly. So how are you going to tell these men, if you want to say everybody else is crazy, everybody else has got the fever dream and thinks they're being abducted, and all the things that you want to, place blame on people that say that they witnessed these things? Are you saying the men up in the sky that are chasing this craft at Mach 3, Mach 4, that what they're seeing is just pure, just insanity, pure lunacy? Is that what you're saying? Because that's kind of what you're saying, like you can only lie to people for so long. And maybe back then you could, because there wasn't efficient ways to capture data, like we've said. But now, like, you can't lie anymore. And I'm sure there's people out there that put fakes in there that mix with the stuff, to where it makes it harder to be detectable. But I mean, come on, dude. Like,
some
come
people
on.
like create these videos, these fake UFO sightings for attention. Some people just want to make a cool video, and then someone takes it and shares it as if it's real. There's a lot of fake stuff out there, so
Oh,
that
definitely.
makes it that makes it frustrating for people who have authentic experiences or have a video of something that is authentic. We recorded what had happened that night, but of course these were on old cell phones.
Oh,
The
yeah, yeah.
the video quality was so terrible. But this was something that my whole family witnessed, with the exception of my dad, who I think was working at the time, um, working offshore. But this was if this was something that only I'd experienced, I'd probably never talk. But because there was myself, my siblings, my mother, all out there, experiencing this same event, I can't explain it. Like it is what it is. Maybe it wasn't aliens. Maybe it was another government. Maybe it was a secret sect of the government doing shit. But like, I don't know what they would have been doing out there in the first place. I can't explain any of it. It just happened, and we
Right.
just happened to witness it. So I don't know.
And when all this happened, like the next morning, because I'm pretty sure this is all at night, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All of this happened. I don't remember the time, but it was dark.
Okay, so the next morning, you guys probably didn't sleep much that night, but whenever you woke up the next morning, Did you guys go out into to where this was all happening and kind of like investigate? Because
No,
another
no.
thing is like crop circles. A
Yeah.
lot of people speculate that UFOs cause these crop circles in these open fields.
We didn't because there were a couple of reasons for that. Our landlord lived like not too far away, like from our backyard, so we never liked walking back there. Um, because he owned all of that property, and some of it was we were just terrified to go out into that field.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, in experiencing something like that will definitely, put you in a mindset where you're like, is it even safe to really go out there? Like, do I really want to risk, going and seeing what that is, or, trying to
I
experiment?
I laughed though because it was a cow pasture. The old cartoons of aliens abducting
Yes.
cows, and the cows. "Mm." I wonder if there's any truth to that. What do they want with cows? Maybe they
Right.
really like milk.
Yeah.
They can
I
only get
mean,
milk from planet Earth. What if milk is like a very fine wine to them? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, abductions have been, something that a lot of people have, really tried to explain. Also, a lot of people were saying that they have been abducted, and the whole stick of having probes shoved up your backwards area, and aliens taking these organs from you and doing a bunch of like experiments. That's definitely something that it kind of seems a little bit I wouldn't say truthful.
Well, and then I can only imagine how traumatic it is to be kidnapped by another human, but to be kidnapped by something uh, that you can't even explain. To experience a whole event like that, I don't know. I don't know the level of trauma that would leave on someone. If it's a true story, I mean, but there are people, of course, that fake this kind of stuff. For attention, for whatever reason. To find a community, maybe in the UFO community. Yeah, there are people that will fake this kind of stuff. People that really don't have any much going for them. Um, but I can't imagine how traumatic that would be. If it happened to me, I would probably never talk about it. I'd be very messed up mentally. you know, I'd be locked up.
Right. It's all crazy. Who's to say if it's real, if it's not real?
I wanted to kind of chime in and see if Trevor. So Trevor, when you went in to say the thing about how you capture how y'all like captured some of it on the cell phones and all that kind of stuff, did you mention the thing about the laptop too?
No, I didn't. So my dad had this old laptop that left at home. We would use it to, get on Facebook and stuff. Um, we uploaded the footage to that laptop, and not soon after that, the laptop crashed. So we lost all that footage on the laptop, and I'm not sure what happened with the footage on the phones. Um, but it wasn't very good footage anyway. Like I said, they're incredibly pixelated. I don't even know if you could tell what was really happening. Um, yeah, these were. I think it was an old iPhone or like an old Nokia, like those phones before there were more than Google phones, or I mean Androids and iPhones. So the footage itself wasn't very good, and you probably just heard us screaming the whole time. But we had some sort of footage, and we uploaded it to the laptop, and we lost it all. So we can't even show anybody if we wanted to.
Yeah, and then Lexi said she had put it on her laptop too, and it happened on her laptop too, where it was it that it was gone, or that the computer crashed. Yeah, so it did the same thing. It had the same outcome where that computer also crashed. So it was on two separate computers that, I mean, it just took out two separate computers just solely for being on it. So
Right, and
that's
I don't
surprising.
I don't know what's up with that. It's
I
It's
mean,
very
maybe
strange.
maybe a
one would say
coincidence.
coincidence, but I mean the odds of it being what it was, being transferred to some kind of device, And then I don't know. I mean, sure, we could be on both sides of the fence about it. We could be like, yeah, that's just, electronics. The coincidence that both of those things failed at the same time and that the file wasn't on the phone and that, all those things, it's like, sure. Oh, and the phone crashed. Yeah, which I think Trevor might have said before, but I wasn't sure.
I said I couldn't remember what had happened to the footage on the phones.
Yeah, Lexi just chimed in. That's why I wanted her to be on here too, because then it would be both of you guys being able to like corroborate the same story. But she's here in spirit, just literally in spirit, floating around in the bedroom.
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's always the low quality videos that have that footage of UFOs or something extraterrestrial.
Less doubtful. I mean, because when you see something in pristine quality, we see stuff like Cloverfield and all this stuff, dude. If you genuinely sent Cloverfield to somebody like in a third world country, they would lose their mind and believe that that was real. Like full blown, they would not question that. But here, we're used to seeing things on such a quality that like we're like, that ain't real. So even when they're releasing real footage out there with stuff like Cloverfield and what was the other the movie with the crawfish alien people? What was the
District 10, District 9,
9,
8, something.
yeah,
like
one
7,
of those
6.
one of
9,
those
I believe.
number districts, but yeah, like it's those kind of movies. Like if you just gave that to somebody with no context and you weren't used to seeing content and entertainment in such a pristine, believable form, somebody somewhere else would not doubt that at all. They would just lose their mind and think that there's that there's other life like that actively walking around.
Right.
But I don't know. I just thought that was interesting, and I mean, Mike, feel free to steer us somewhere else if you want to jump into something else. But
Oh no, I mean,
yeah,
I feel like we touched base on a lot of things today. I feel like that this could be a good stopping point for us today. I did have a couple other things I wanted to talk about, but the more I started thinking about those type of things, I feel like they're best not to discuss it and kind of just end off with this note. And kind of just end it on this wavelength of aliens. But I definitely thank you guys for being a part of today's show. I definitely had a great time, and thanks for freeing up your busy schedules to make it today.
Oh no, thank you for having me. You saved me
Yeah.
from cutting along. I will be sleeping with a tinfoil hat on tonight.
yeah. I appreciate you having us on, and it's always fun to talk about these things because the possibilities are always there when you have an open mind. They're not when you don't. And I mean, life's too short to really live with such a closed-minded opinion on things.
Right.
Have an open mind. And then, I mean, maybe you'll be one of the fortunate people that get to witness something that does have you thinking maybe a little bit more in depth about stuff like that. When you have firsthand experience, I don't write it out because if I have the opportunity to experience something like that, by all means, I want my eyes and ears open so I don't think like that's fake and just walk past it, because then you just miss out on the whole experience because you're not even being open eyes, being open eyes about it, and I just think that I want to witness something like that so I can be like, wow, this phenomenon that has so much doubt in it, like I've witnessed it. I've witnessed it firsthand, and I witnessed something unexplainable. And that I feel is both a curse and a gift, because it seems like a lot of the people out there that did get those kind of experiences often have some type of like lifelong trauma, if you will, from having those experiences. So that's why if I'm meant to experience it, by all means, but I'm not going to say that something is not a possibility simply because I haven't experienced it. So that's my thoughts on it, and I appreciate you again for having us on, and
Yeah.
you know, maybe next time we can be on another one with some other guests if you know,
Yeah,
if
I
time permits.
definitely
If you
definitely
play
want
your
to do a
cards
part
right,
two.
Matt.
Yeah, I definitely want to do a part two of this. Definitely had a fun time doing a little bit of conspiracy theory diving with you guys, and just sharing our thoughts and opinions about different things. Before we go though, I kind of want to share a story. I don't have a real in-depth story like Trevor's, but I do have kind of a story to tell about UFOs, and my personal story. So it was a couple years back. We were in my uncle's ranch. It's kind of like out in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico, and it's a public, or not a public, a private family ranch, and every year we would go there and we would actually do a fireworks show, at the end of our time there. It was like a little family festival that we would do. We would go there for about a good week, and the last day we would always host this fireworks show. And I remember that after we did our fireworks show, we did it on this hill, and we would walk down afterwards to where our campgrounds were. And while we were there, we were at the campfire there, and we were having a good time. We were talking and chatting. We happened to just look up, and we're seeing the stars, but we noticed that there was these stars that were kind of like moving in circles, and there wasn't just one or two. There was about a good group, 8, 9, 10, sometimes 12, just like doing these little circles in the sky, doing all these like weird shape things that like nothing would have been able to do that. A plane can't circle like that, unless they have, 4 helicopters up there. There's no way that could happen, because there was, again, no sound whatsoever. There was just these
Yeah.
floating little orbs just floating in circles. And it was really weird. So I don't really get the experience that you did, but I did have, a little bit of experience with, something floating up above us that just circled us. Didn't really do nothing. After a couple of minutes, they kind of just disappeared. We didn't really see them zoom off in any directions. They kind of just disappeared, and that was the end of that. But definitely something that I
Something you
remember.
couldn't explain. Something
Right.
you couldn't explain.
Right, and it was an unnatural occurrence. Planes don't have those same formations and can't do those same maneuvers.
Right.
There's, we don't have a plane, and then other people want to say stuff like, well, it's government, it's black project, it's all these kind of things we don't know about. But if that's the case, why make yourself that easily exposable even to one person if you're doing some kind of test project or something like that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
why would you not just test that kind of stuff on, in private facilities and stuff like that?
And that event happened to us, for us, I should say. Oh, over 10 years ago. So that speaks of how rare these occurrences really are. Because I haven't seen anything like that ever since.
Yeah, mine was around the same time zone, definitely 10 plus years ago as well for me. So it was definitely a crazy experience. I haven't experienced anything like it since. I do have a very strong um, opinion about the stars. I tend to really have a deep interest in astronomy, and space and things like that. So whenever I'm outside during the nighttime, I tend to try to find, living in a city, there's a lot of lights, so it's kind of hard for me to actually view stars from where I am at, in Phoenix. There's so much city lights that it kind of just like dies down the visibility of the stars. But I do try to find a nice spot where I'm able to actually see space and the stars. And I always try to look for something, something that, can remind me of that time, and try to like explain better of what I saw, what I experienced that night. And I have not yet had any other experience like that time.
I tell
And
you
you
what,
might not. You
Yeah,
might not, like, ever again. You may never have anything like that. And that's why I feel like those kind of people, like I said, people who are gifted and also cursed by that experience, you'll always be wondering. You'll be like, oh, if there's a next time, what I would do different is, and there may never be another time. Like, you got that rare gift, and that shit'll leave you just wondering for the rest of your life, because you realize you experience something that is unexplainable, and at this present moment in time will forever be, and
and
you never know if you're going to see it again.
you know, and I've said it. It's been so long since that's happened, but every night, when I let the dogs out, I'm still looking up, and I'm still looking for something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, every single night I look up, and all I see are these planes flying, and I'm like, man, give me something other than that, because I really want to know exactly what I saw.
And you know what's actually crazy, when you actually are somewhere where you do get a really amazing view of the sky, you realize how much you don't see up there. Like, there's so much unexplainable just from us looking up and seeing, lights. You can definitely see things moving up there, whether they're satellites, they're planes, they're whatever. You see things moving up there when you look long enough. So again, that's the thing that, like I said, it could be right in front of us, and if you're the type of person that doesn't want to see it, you're not gonna see it. So I don't know, I think it's fascinating, and I every chance that I get to watch a good documentary on it, I definitely enjoy it, because I feel like it's always good to look beyond where we think the surface is, because our universe and our galaxies are entirely too larger than we'll ever comprehend, ever know, and we shouldn't take that for granted. I mean, we should try to know as much about it as we can, but just realize, as much as we think we know, we will never know enough.
Yeah, I've actually seen, galaxies, naked eye galaxies that I can see, without a telescope in the sky, in spots where it's like no light at all. I'm in complete darkness, and I look up and I can visibly see with the naked eye different galaxies, not just a star. I can legit see galaxies where just clusters of stars in one place, and I'm like, that's amazing. Like, it's really a sight to see. When you're just looking up, because a lot of people just look at, oh look, there's just these lights in the sky, when there's something more. It just really, it's eye appealing for me. It's very eye appealing, and something that I just always find fascinating, and I've always found fascinating since I was a kid. I've taken a couple classes about astronomy. I've always been interested in learning more about space and things like that, because like we were talking about, I don't believe we're alone. I definitely would like to know more about what's out there. So, I mean, yeah, again, thank you guys for joining me today, and look forward to having you guys on for next time. And yeah, that's gonna cut it for this one.
It's been fun, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's always fun, and we look forward to next time.
Yes, always. And well, let me do my my signature sign off. Everyone, stay safe out there. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.